Hey everybody, what's going on? So today in this video we're going to be talking about swim jigs and where I like to fish them, when I like to fish them, my two favorite trailers, and all that fun stuff. So first thing, I want you guys to answer me down in the comments. Here lately my videos and YouTube have just been acting really stupid, and I don't know, you know, when I get comments and stuff like that, they don't tell me, like, ever. They just don't even notify me. So if you have a question or something and I don't answer you until a few hours later or whatever, don't be upset by that or anything. It's honestly, it's just YouTube being stupid and not notifying me that I got a comment or something like that on YouTube. Also, if you guys are not getting notifications for my videos, or if you are, let me know down in the comments as well, because it seems like my last few videos have not been doing very good until like the next couple of days, and some people were saying that the notifications haven't been working right. Some people were saying that the notifications weren't even going through. They had to go to my channel to even see the videos. So let me know down in the comments if you've been having any trouble with that kind of stuff by posting videos and stuff, because I've been having quite a bit of trouble ever since I started posting 2 videos a day. That's why I stopped posting 2 videos every day, because it just was taking so long for the one video to post and another one. It would just take forever for a 3-minute video to post. And YouTube was just acting really stupid, so that's why I stopped posting 2 videos every day. Okay, now that that's out of the way, we're going to go ahead and talk about my 2 favorite swim jig trailers and all the swim jigs I use. Now, I believe I have 4 brands of swim jigs up here on this table. A lot of them are duplicates of each other. I have 3 Strike Kings, and I have 2 6 cents, and I have a Dirty Jigs, and I have a whatever company this is, I honestly forget. We're going to go ahead and quickly talk about my favorite 2 trailers. So my favorite 2 trailers are the 3.5 Gunner by Doc Lure Company. I like that one a lot. I'll tell you why here in a little bit. And the, ooh, look at there, I caught it. Almost dropped it. And the Doc Lure Company Mud Crawler, as well as a swim jig trailer. So we're going to talk about why here in a little bit. First off, we're going to talk about my favorite swim jigs, sizes, and everything else. So the main swim jigs that I throw, mainly because they are relatively cheap, and they're pretty easy to find. You can find these swim jigs here, the 3 that I own. You can find them at most Walmarts. You can also get them off of eBay. I bought these off of eBay because I could just get them a little bit cheaper than at Walmart, but it doesn't really matter, honestly. That is Strike King. So this one here actually doesn't have a trailer yet. I'm getting ready to put one on here in a little bit. This is a white, just plain white. I believe this is a 1/4 ounce, if I remember correctly. 1/4 ounce in white, basic, just a basic swim jig. Next is another, this is 1/2 ounce, and this is in bluegill. Now, something you'll notice is all my swim jigs that are from Strike King are not just their normal traditional ones. They are the Hack Attack heavy cover ones, mainly because I like having a bigger hook and a little bit heavier weed guard. Even if I'm not fishing in heavy cover, I still like it just because I can horse, you know, a 3 or 4 pounder a little bit heavier. You know, I can wrench them in pretty quick with this type of a setup. This is a bluegill, natural brim color by Strike King. And then this one here, I believe is called Smoke Shad. And this one here has a minnow gray colored 3.5 Gunner on the back of that. Next, this one here is one of my newest ones. I threw it a little bit right before the water decided to just freeze. And also, the weather is really freaking weird here in Illinois. If you live in my area of Illinois, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because tomorrow's high is 6 degrees. The low is around 3 to -3. It keeps bouncing back and forth between the two. And the high for Monday is 57, almost 60 degrees. Actually, the high for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday are almost 6 degrees. So I don't honestly know. I don't know. Illinois is just super duper weird. I am really considering, when I get old enough and have the money, I'm going to move to Texas. I really want to move to Texas or Florida. If I move anywhere that's not Texas, I'll probably move to Florida, just so I don't have to worry about this cold crap anymore, and I can go fishing. I see people posting pictures on Facebook constantly of them catching big fish down in Florida. Justin Lucas just caught, I think it was Justin Lucas, I might be wrong, he caught like an 11-4 during practice for the Major League Fishing Tournament. There's another lake that I might even move to, and that's Lake Chickamauga, because there was a 11 and a 12 caught this past week on Lake Chickamauga, so I might move there too. I don't know, honestly. Tennessee's starting to sound like a pretty good place to move. But next, anyway, this one here is a Dirty Jigs California Swim Jig. Now, I've always wanted a California Swim Jig ever since I heard Matt Allen and Tim Little talking about it. And I was like, you know what? I finally found them off of eBay, and I bought one. This is a color called Crappie. I think it looks a lot like a shad, crappie, bluegill. I think that, you know, even when they're eating bluegill, this will definitely be a great color. I also really like the weed guard on this jig. It's a really nice, it's not too stiff, it's not too soft either. I really like that. And the next one is a 6-cent swim jig. These are really good swim jigs. I like the quality of the skirt. It's a very thin cut, very good color. And this here is a really good, I like the feel of the weed guard. I think that'll be good, you know, around rocks and brush piles, you know, swimming it real slow above the brush piles. I have two of those. One in that color there is called, if I remember correctly, that is called Table Rock Shad. It's got like a purple and chartreuse in it. And then this one here is called Cajun Fire Gill or something like that. It's got some chartreuse, orange, black, and blue. And then I have a Black Magic trailer on the back of that. Awesome bait right there. And then another one of my favorite jigs. I haven't caught anything on this one, but it is a really good jig, and that is the whatever brand this was. I honestly forget. I think it was V&M brand, and it actually has a little rattle. You guys may or may not be able to hear that on the camera, but there is a small rattle thing right there. You guys can see it. It's got a small rattle on it, and I've got a Green Pumpkin Magic 3.5 gunner on the back of that. So we're going to go ahead and talk real quick about when I like to fish these. I like to fish these swim jigs during the post-spawn and pre-spawn. The fall is also a really good time of year to throw this, especially when people are out there throwing spinnerbaits and chatterbaits. The shad spawn is another great time to throw a swim jig because you see a lot of people out throwing spinnerbaits and chatterbaits. If you're on a clear water place and you see a lot of people out throwing spinnerbaits, I mean, you can hear a spinnerbait a mile away. If somebody catches a fish on a spinnerbait, you're going to hear it because them blades hitting the wire and hitting everything else, you're going to hear the daggone thing. So if you see people ahead of you throwing a spinnerbait and you see them catch a couple fish here and there, pick up a swim jig, because a swim jig can be a very good finesse way to power fish. Pretty much is how it is. It's a finesse way to power fish because it doesn't make a whole lot of noise. It doesn't have a whole lot of flash like a spinnerbait. Doesn't have a whole lot of vibration like a chatterbait. It's just a small, slow profile going through the water. And depending on the trailer you use, if you use something like a 3.5 gunner right here, it has a little bit more of a heavier kick, and that will help you in muddier water. Or if you're like me and you like throwing crawbaits on the back, this here is actually a white mud crawler, and I'm going to actually put that on this one, this Strike King white swim jig, and I'm going to put the Green Pumpkin Magic mud crawler on the back of this Strike King bluegill swim jig because I like crawbaits as trailers, especially on a bluegill swim jig. Now, I don't throw it a whole lot on a shad swim jig, but a bluegill swim jig with a sideways rigged crawl can be a killer bait because it imitates a very slow moving little tail on a bluegill. And something I love to do, I'm going to do it this year for sure, especially fishing that pond that I fished last year. I'm definitely going to take some what they call dip and glow. I think I still have some of the markers in my tackle box somewhere in here. I'll have to find them. Yeah, here's one right here, I think. Nope, maybe not. They're in there somewhere. It's hard to say where I put them. I haven't used them in a while. I'm thinking about buying some more of them, but I'll take, when I'm fishing around a lot of green sunfish or a lot of green sunfish hybrids, I'll take the ends of my claws right there and I'll paint them either pink, which is kind of a pinkish red, or chartreuse, and that will help a lot with those fish finding the bait a little bit better. And it's also a very good match the hatch, as they like to call it, way to catch fish. So the reasons and the ways that I like to rig them. A lot of people will rig a crawl bait on there straight, just like you normally would with a jig. Instead of it being, sideways like I rig it, a lot of people will throw it like this right here, where the claws are flat away from the jig. But I personally like to rig it like that right there, to where it's sideways on the jig. And what that imitates, what that imitates is two little tail fins just kicking back and forth a little bit. And when you got a really finesse crawl bait like this, it doesn't have a whole crazy lot of action, but it has a very slow, very limited action, and I really like that on these baits. Now they definitely have big action when you burn them in the water, but when you're slow rolling that swim jig, like I like to do, I like to slow roll them, really slow around grass. They have a very good tail movement, and it looks almost exactly like a bluegill when you're slow rolling it around the grass. Now, when you're throwing a 3.5 gunner or something similar, I normally am going after the more aggressive fish. You'll see that I have, the whites, the black and blues, and even some of the green pumpkins, but more the white, the black and blue, or the gray colors with that trailer instead of a mud crawler. And the reason why is when I'm throwing that kind of stuff, I'm more looking for shad eaters, stuff that are wanting to move. The fish will want to move after those baits. Now, when you're fishing slow for them bluegill eaters, a crawl bait can be a little bit better for them because it's a slower moving bait. They can reach up there and grab it a little bit slower. They don't have to chase after it. And that's a really good way to catch them. I personally like to throw them a little bit slower than most. That's just me, though. I like throwing them around people that like throwing spinnerbaits. I'll take you back a little bit on the first bass I caught all year last year was on a white swim jig with a swim bait. It was a Doc Sewer Company 4-inch swim bait, if I remember correctly. And basically what happened was they were telling me, my cousins, Bob and Zach, they were telling me that they had been on fire with the chatterbaits, white or white and chartreuse chatterbaits. And I got to digging around in my tackle box and found, it's not this exact one, I actually broke off the one I had, but a white Strike King swim jig. And I put that on and I cast it out on my first or second cast, and I caught a fish. And that's a really good way to catch them. When you're seeing people who are throwing bigger, spinner baits or chatterbaits, throw a swim jig because it's a little bit more of a finesse profile, a little bit smaller profile, and you can definitely catch the fish. So another way that I love throwing swim jigs is really close to the bank. If I'm fishing around a pond or if I'm fishing from a boat, it doesn't really matter. I will throw them super duper close to the bank. Something that I've seen a lot of people do, and I personally like to do it on smaller ponds, is I'll cast all the way across the pond, and sometimes I'll even land it on the other bank, and then just slowly creep it off the bank and land it right in the water and just start swimming it, just at a medium speed, nothing crazy, no real hard jerks or nothing. Sometimes, if you're seeing that the fish are eating shad and bluegill heavily, sometimes that can help you. But personally, I just normally will just slow roll it. Maybe every once in a while I'll give it a little tap with the rod tip, just to kind of get that pulsating skirt action and the trailer to move a little bit more as well. But typically, I just like to slow roll it. It doesn't really mean that that's the only way I'll ever throw it. I'll throw it the way the fish like it. If they like it fast, I'll throw it fast. If they like it slow, I'll throw it slow. It doesn't really matter. As long as I'm getting bit, I don't care how I'm fishing. Another thing that I personally do with a lot of swim jigs is throw them around brush piles. Do not be afraid to throw them around brush. Weeds that are in the water, reeds is a very big way to catch fish, what they call bullwhips. That's one of the names that I know of them. They're basically like almost like little bamboo shoots that are just growing out of the water. A lot of people like throwing spinnerbaits and chatterbaits around those, but a swim jig can be killer. It's a bait that a lot of people will overlook, and it's a bait that you can get those fish that don't really want to commit to those really flashy spinnerbaits. They just kind of are, it really is just like a finesse spinnerbait or a finesse chatterbait, because there is no crazy flash blade, there is no real bad vibration. It's just a small little bait fish that's just swimming through the water. That's all the bass see. and then they just nail it, and it's a really good weight. I like throwing it around shallow cover, shallow trees, branches that are coming over in the water. You know, I like to flip a swim jig. A lot of people have done it. I've seen, I can't remember the guy. I want to say it was Brian Thrift, but I might be wrong on that. He was throwing a swim jig. I think it was actually this brand here, the V&M Swim Jigs. He was throwing a white swim jig with a white swim bait. He was just flipping it up into the brush, and almost as soon as it hit the water, he would engage his reel and just start reeling it. And sometimes he let it drop a little bit and then reel. And he ended up winning that tournament off of doing that technique, flipping a swim jig up into the brush and then just slow rolling it back out. And sometimes he would pop the rod real fast, keeping it moving. But he caught fish doing that, and I've caught fish doing that. And it's a really good way to do it. Swim jigs are becoming one of my favorite baits to fish, just off of the fact that it's an easy bait to fish. All you got to do is cast it out and reel it. It doesn't matter how fast, doesn't matter how slow. As long as you're making that tail and that skirt move, you can catch fish. That's what I say. You can throw it around grass, rocks, wood, trees, boat docks. You can throw it around other people's boats and you can probably catch fish. I mean, this thing catches fish no matter where. A YouTuber that I know that uses the 6-inch swim jigs all the time is Milliken Fishing. He talks about them all the time. You know, he makes jokes of how they should be illegal in like 13 states or whatever. They're probably illegal in Illinois, probably, because they do catch fish. I caught a lot of fish on them last year. One of my favorite ways to fish is actually not even a swim jig. I think I got one in here. It's actually a Arky style jig with a swim bait or a grub on the back. Green pumpkin purple with either the 3-inch grub by Doc Sewer Company or the 3.5 gunner in Green Pumpkin Magic. I caught a crap ton of fish doing that this year, and most of the time it was with one of these as the trailer, 3.5 gunner by the 3.5 gunner by Doc Sewer Company with a Strike King swim jig or the little Arky jigs there. I don't remember the brand on those. They're like an eBay special brand is what they were, but it's a really good jig. So this year, if you have not bought any swim jigs yet, I suggest you do before spring, because right as that water is still a little bit cold, but they're still up and moving a little bit, that is when you want to throw a swim jig, because that's when I caught them. The day I caught them, I was wearing a coat just a little bit smaller than this one here. I was wearing a coat, a big sock hat, or I was wearing a ball cap, you know, a normal hat, you know, a coat, and I was cold. It was a cold day. I think the low that day was, I think the low that night was almost 35, I think it was. We were worried that the pond was going to have ice on it. I remember that. But when we got there, the water was a little bit warmer than the air temperature, and they were saying how they had caught fish previously on chatterbaits, and I picked up a swim jig and I caught fish. So if you have yet to catch any fish on a swim jig ever, or if you've never bought a swim jig or anything like that, I suggest going with a Strike King, Hack Attack, or the regular. The regular is all right. If you don't have a little bit heavier rod, if you're using like medium light rods, you know, 5 foot, 6 foot inch, so many, you know, whatever size rods. If you're using a smaller medium action rod, I do suggest going with the smaller, lighter, normal swim jigs, not the Hack Attack, just because you can get a little bit better hook set. But if you have a medium heavy or a heavy rod, go with a regular Hack Attack heavy cover swim jig, because they will catch you fish, and they're only like $5 or $6. You know, to some people that's expensive. To some people it's not. I don't think it really is, because they are quality baits. They're not, you know, they're not as quality as say the Dirty Jigs, California Swim Jig, or the 6 cents, but those jigs there are almost $10 a piece. So, you know, you kind of have to give and take. You know, there might be a little bit better quality in the price, but if you are just trying to get into it, I definitely suggest Strike King. Me personally, the two colors, if I had to pick two colors out of all the colors that there are in swim jigs, I'm thinking about getting a black and blue here pretty soon, because I don't have a straight, just regular black and blue. And I'm also thinking about getting a couple other colors as well. But in the whole color scheme game anymore, there's so many colors that look really good, but in my opinion, tried and true, just plain old white with silver flake and bluegill. And if you don't have bluegill, or let's say, you know, if your local store doesn't have bluegill color, a green pumpkin is fine too. A green pumpkin, anything that imitates a bluegill, black and blue can kind of imitate a bluegill. Green pumpkin purple, bluegill, actual bluegill colors, anything like that will definitely work for those bluegill eaters. If you've got a bunch of shad eaters in your lakes or ponds, a white can be really good. Another color that's really good is the smoking shad. Personally, the Strike Kings are pretty easy to get. You can get them on eBay at a ton of different places. Most Walmarts sell them. A lot of Bass Pro Shops places sell swim jigs. I mean, if you have a Bass Pro or a Cabela's, just ask them where the swim jigs are. Just go down the jig aisle. There's probably a whole, 10-foot long section just for swim jigs, because they're a very popular bait. They're even growing in popularity even more, which gets me a little bit scared, because I'm worried a lot of people around here are going to start throwing swim jigs. I hope not, just so I can catch those fish that they're not catching. But, if they watch this video and they see that I'm catching fish on swim jigs, good. I hope I taught them something. But if you've never thrown a swim jig, if you've never used a swim jig, I definitely suggest you get some before the pre-spawn and post-spawn areas, because that is where a swim jig will shine. I actually have done an in-depth episode on swim jigs, so if you want to learn how to fish a swim jig, maybe you already have some and you can't catch fish on them, go to that video and I'll go in-depth and I'll actually show you on the water how I fish them. And it's a very good video. If I do say so myself, normally I don't really watch my own videos. I don't watch my own videos ever, really. But that is a video that if I was, 3 years ago when I was first starting to fish jigs and other baits, I would have definitely liked to watch that video, because it's a very informative video. So I thank you guys for watching once again. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already.